Hi everyone, today's interview is with Laura Hof. So Laura is Wim Hof's daughter and has been doing all the cold water showers and cold water exposure and yoga and all sorts of magical, amazing things since you were 11 you started cold showers. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah, I would say so. Actually, even earlier. But since 11, I was doing cold shower very consciously. And I really did it based on a tip of my father. And he told me it was good for the skin. So that's pretty much how I started. However, I did notice quite a lot of improvement with my sports as well. So I did a lot of sports, was running every day. And I never had any muscle pain. So it's great for recovery as well. So the acidity that you build up when you are doing sports, that actually gets flushed out of your system very well. It's just
Lactic acid, you mean? Is that
yes,
lactic acid?
exactly, the lactic acid. So it's great for sports. But I think if I think about cold exposure, my father never forced us to do anything. But you know how kids are. Kids don't learn by getting taught or by through words. They get taught just by observing the world. They're like little sponges, and that's also how I was. So I still remember when I was 6 and my father was just dipping, doing his yoga in the snow in the middle of the winter. Everything is white. And he went into the water. And I always was with him playing outside in the cold. And sometimes I also dipped and sometimes I didn't, just because I was observing and I wanted to do it. So I think I did cold exposure even earlier. I still remember also some days from my school that my teacher told my father, she doesn't have any jacket. So okay, oh yeah, it's time to get her a jacket. So with us, it was never about just watching the news, having the weather forecast, and based on that, putting a sweater on or putting a jacket on. No, it was just by feeling. So the moment that you felt cold, literally felt cold, that's only the moment that we put something on. So that's really how I moved through life, actually. Later on, still was doing cold showers. Only later on, I really began doing this ice baths, and swimming more in lakes, more consciously. Yeah, I think probably since 23, 3-ish. And that's pretty much when we really got the method started as a method, so something that you can teach to others. And of course, cold exposure you can do in many ways. You have cold showers, you have nature swimming. I absolutely really recommend nature swimming, because you have nature, you have the cold that is very natural, and then the symbiosis that you are creating between you and nature. You're in direct contact with nature, and there is something to it that I feel, and you can sense this, you can feel this when you do it. There's a charging up of your energy system. I hear you do a lot with energy. I'm a holistic therapist as well, so actually also a Reiki master, but it's it's all about energy. We are energetic beings as well. And some are more introverts, some are more extroverts. So you get, there are different situations where your energy is flushed. But with cold exposures, it is one of the best ways to really create energy. And that has to do, physiologically speaking, you can think about the adrenaline boost, right, and the dopamine boost. So that really energizes your whole entire being. So when you go into the cold, it gives a little stressor, and your whole entire being says, oh my God, what is this? And all of these little systems in yourself, also these energy centers, that's how you can describe it. They are turned on, and that's why you just feel bloody great. You feel amazing. You feel alive. You feel alive. If you are not stimulating these systems, they are not turned on. So then it's like you feel a little bit lethargic. Maybe you stay at home. It is cold outside. You don't want to go out. But I think we are really built, we are a product of millions and millions and millions of years of evolution. And it's because of this direct contact that at the end of the day, all of our ancestors also had to endure, also had to adapt. And this adaptation and this contact with nature, this stimulation of all these physiological, mental, emotional processes, because that's what we're talking about, they are turned on when we go into nature again, when we go and have contact with cold. And I think cold is one of the best ways also for stress management for anybody that has stress in their lives. Well, if you go into the cold, it is a type of stress. Your whole entire body immediately is screaming out, get me the heck out of here. And I think some people prefer ice baths, other people prefer cold showers or nature swimming, cold nature swimming. But at the end of the day, it is a little stressor for the system. And by learning to with your mind and the body adapts. It's the cardiovascular system. So if you come in contact with nature, you are actually training your cardiovascular system, which is 125 kilometers long of blood veins. These little blood veins have little tiny muscles, and they open up these little blood veins and they close them. Open up, close, close. When you go into cold water, you actually are training these muscles to open and close up properly. And these little muscles, they are pumping 6 liters of blood throughout your whole entire system, helping your heart pump that blood through your system. Now, when they are working properly, your heart doesn't have to work that hard. That means less stress. So this is a complete, that's how you have to see it, a complete inner workout, cardiovascular workout. At the same time, this blood is flushing. What is it carrying? Our oxygen. It is carrying the oxygen, the minerals, the vitamins, all through cell level. So if these little tiny muscles are working properly, that means that until cell level, you're properly nourished and you're properly oxygenized. That's how important this cardiovascular system is. At the same time, you're also training your nervous system. So most of the time, as stressful people, we are in daily lives. We have the stress of work. We have the stress of our spouse, perhaps, or I don't know how to call, or the kids, or whatever what it is. It's all stress. But stress also leads to inflammation. You know, sometimes we think about inflammation, which is a breeding ground for all kinds of different conditions and diseases. All modern disease rests on inflammation. And inflammation...
I think parasites are a big part of modern diseases as well.
Yeah, parasites?
Parasites, I think, are behind most diseases.
Yes, but if you think about parasites, where do they thrive in? Bacteria, parasites, viruses, only in environments that are deregulated, that have inflammation, that are not cleansed. Okay, then they have a chance to move in and do damage. But when you have a system that is aligned, a nervous system, an immune system that is healthy, there is the pH level is proper 7.4, but it's proper. You're not slightly acidic, you're not slightly inflamed long term, because that's the breeding ground for all kinds of conditions, diseases, bacteria, viruses, parasites. I mean, for everything. But if you have a healthy system, if you have a healthy nervous system that is balanced, a good, strong immune system, then there is no chance for all of these intruders, as I say, to nestle. And so that's really how powerful it is. And with these techniques that I'm teaching as well, but with the Wim Hof method, that is what I'm teaching most of the time. It is one of the most effective ways to instantly reset your whole entire system, and that is the nervous system. The nervous system pretty much is sort of the electrical wiring that goes from the brain to the body and regulates all the different systems in your body. So it's extremely important, such as the temperature, right? But there are also a part of it that is called the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system pretty much consists of two parts, which is the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And don't think about these words because they can be very confusing, but just see them as the...
Sympathetic stress, that's the way I remember it, because they both start with an S.
Yeah, sometimes like, parasympathetic, it gets confusing for a lot of people. Just active and more rest part. And you pretty much have to see it the moment that you wake up, you go out into the world, you want to be active, you want to be focused, you want to make sure that you meet your deadlines, right? So that is the active part of your nervous system. If you think about our ancestors that were cave members, they had the same. The rest part, that automatically kicks in if it's healthy, if it's balanced, when you go home and you need to rest. You need to digest your food. You need to socialize. And then you need to calm down and read a book or whatever, and then sleep, right?
Sure.
Now, these systems, they pretty much activate and they pacify or go to rest, the rest part, automatically without you having to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought that, we don't have any say in this. And with the Wim Hof method, we know now, yes, you can. Most people, if we think about modern people, or a lot of people, they're slightly into the stressed part of this system. And that means that, for example, they go home and actually they still feel anxious. They're still thinking about work. They still, they can't sleep. And that's because they're more in this stress part of the nervous system. For a little bit in this stress part, it's okay. But if you are in this stress part, even so slightly for a long time, that creates inflammation. Yeah, and inflammation is the basis of all modern disease. That's how you really can see it. That is the gravity of this. So it's not only the food that you eat, it's not only the air that you breathe that can be polluted, etc. It's also the stress of the mind. Yeah, that also creates inflammation. It stresses, gives a signal to the body, it stresses it out, and that creates inflammation. So this is really what we know now with the method, these techniques that I am actually teaching. It is one of the most effective tools to actually get more influence in this system. And if you want to have direct influence right now at this moment, you can do that just using your breath, right? A cold exposure is a great way for stress management. It's a whole different explanation. But the breath is the remote control of your autonomic nervous system. So if you want to have more rest, calmness in your life, you have to really focus on the breath. Really make sure that you're breathing more deeper into the belly. Yeah, really making sure that you have longer exhalations, more slow exhalations. Breathing through the nose also gives you more control over your state. If you want to energize yourself, actually, you can also use the breath. Yeah, so it also goes the other way. You can energize the breath, quicker breath in, use the mouth, for example, and just go quicker. And this is actually what we do with the Wim Hof method. Why I think it is one of the best methods, actually one of the best tools, is that it resets this autonomic nervous system. And if you were a little bit slightly in the stressed state, when you do these breathing exercises, what we do is that we are training this nervous system first in a couple of rounds, going back and forth, and then we bring it back at the end to what is called homeostatic balance. And homeostatic balance is just the balanced point where you want to be at flexibly of your whole entire state, of also this nervous system. Yeah? And that is actually what we do with this Wim Hof method. It is an unbelievably beautiful tool because our body is built to heal itself, to regenerate. And that happens only when this nervous system is balanced. When you go home, you go to the rest and digest part, because that is also the part that regenerates all.
Well, your body is always, if you're not in the rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system, you are not repairing and building new cells, because all the energy in the blood goes to your arms and legs so you can run away from the danger, and nothing else happens, which is why also, if you look at people who suddenly get very high powered jobs like a CEO or a president, they end up extremely stressed and they age 10 years in 3.
Yes, it's literally, if you don't have the regeneration, and we're built to do both. It's not that you only have to be in the rest and digest part, because then you can become lethargic. That's also not what we want. We want to have a system where you are in the homeostatic balance point. That's just the middle point, and flexibly, when the situation requires it, to go to rest and digest and go to the fight and flight, the more active part. When you do need to make sure that you meet your deadline and stay focused, but in a healthy way. Afterwards, you need to make sure that you go to rest part, because when you are in your fight and flight and your active part, you are also acidifying your body, which is okay for a little bit, because our body is built to regenerate, to flush that acidity out of our body afterwards, after a little while. And it also gives a little boost, because it is cleaning it up and everything is aligned again. So we need both systems. But most of the time with people, especially with high if they are in high positions and they are stressed all of the time, they're taking their phones to their home. Of course, they take their phones to their home.
To the toilet and to bed with them, all of that,
but they're constantly in stress. That for a period you can still maintain. But if you are in stress state, even though so slightly, for a long time, that will not go the right way. You see that with people being in stress states for a long time, long periods, there are all kinds of different diseases and conditions popping up. And we're
all
also
diseases. Or if you're stressed, every disease, it's every disease can come from that, because you're just not preparing. You're not doing any body maintenance.
Yes, and it's also, you can see that with burnouts. I mean, what is it? It's a constant being in the on switch. The on switch is this on and it doesn't turn off. So you're just not regenerating. There is a moment that your body says, the mind still wants to go on. It's the mind that, no, sorry, we need to meet our deadlines. We have a next project. I cannot start. But the body, there's a moment that it says, no. Wait a minute. I'm going to take over, because you're not listening to me. And that's actually what it is. I think it is, you see a lot of people, I'm now come across a lot of people that have a burnout, and I know exactly, they're just completely in the mind. So the mind, the prefrontal cortex, it's a little part of our brain. It's the newest part of our brain, but it is the part that is planning, being analytical, thinking about the future, thinking about the past. But if this is on all the time, it also means that all of this blood flow, that your whole brain needs a lot of blood flow. But if all the blood flow goes to that part, where's the energy going, right? It just sucks up all of this energy. When we do this breathing, and this is so beautiful, right? We do this breathing, this Wim Hof method breathing, and it's just amazing. You see that all of the brain parts, the blood flow goes everywhere. It means that there is a better distribution, oxygenation of these brain parts until cell level, of course. These neurons, the connection between the brain parts, are then working more properly. That means that the emotional part will be working better, means that your creative part will be working better, and that you're more in the here and now. So I see it as you're making a more holistic brain. You're making a more holistic you. And actually, that's the way that we are designed to be. Now, the way that we are now in a system, and the way that we are a lot of time working, is just only using the analytical part of the brain. Actually, you need to be able to use everything, that everything is connected to one another.
That was what they used to do. They used to have, sort of in Roman times and old times, they used to have people who, the philosophers, were also the sportsmen and the athletes. They were using different sides, and you had to be very strong to be in these high positions. So that was always quite interesting, that, now we've got sort of people who are, we don't associate fitness with intellect necessarily at the moment, but actually that combination makes you the best that you can be.
I love it. Yeah, that's beautiful. If you think about it, you have the fundamentals, right? I think you talk about hominus universalis. It's a Renaissance concept, but actually it talks about this, that a man can be anything, and not only one thing, but he can be a carpenter and a politician and a
But it
musician.
brings balance, doesn't it? Because I
Yes.
think you need, if you know, I've got one of my friends who's she's a healer, but she's also an accountant, and she really
Love it.
enjoys doing the both things because they're completely
Yes.
different.
And it's logical because we have a brain with many facets. We have a personality that has different, yeah, roles. Different. We have different personalities actually, and so to use different brain parts, it's almost like an exercise, and it feels good because you are expanding that neurology. You're expanding yourself pretty much. If you're only stuck in one part of your brain, yeah, it can become a nuisance after a time. It can
But
become,
I mean, even just having an artistic project or something on the
yes,
side that you're
yeah,
making, like I
yeah.
think the physicality of building or painting or sculpting or making something with your hands is so important. I think it really helps our development and you know, being calm and
And
happy.
oh, that's beautiful. That puts you more in the here and now. Being
Yeah.
busy with your hands, that means it requires you to be in the moment because you have to pay attention to every bolt and screw that you're putting in. So yes, and if you are using both brain parts, actually the brain is more malleable and more yeah, it's not very rigid, but you do have two brain parts, not sort of, where one is more creative and the
Mm,
more emotional, and the other one is more analytical, and more busy with. So if you can use both, I can imagine that that creates just more happiness. I like to do all kinds of different things. I'm
yeah,
not a
me too.
one-sided person, and to give that attention, to give that energy, to recognize that first, and then really go with it, because sometimes we don't listen to ourselves, and that,
That's true.
yeah, and you're only using one brain part, and that can, without you listening to yourself, that becomes yeah, it can make people unhappy, can make people unhappy, and it's logical because there are other sides of them that they also should give
Mm,
energy to, attention to, explore, and that exploration is very much part of the human being. It's very much part of the human being. We have to do that exploration, even though it can be outside in the world, but it's also inside. So, what are the parts in you that you still want to develop? For me, self development and being really listening to myself is very
mm.
important, has always been very important in my life. And I listen to it. And it can mean that after 3 years, I'm just done with one thing. I know people that some people are different. They can do one thing their whole life
I
and
get done with things like scuba diving. I've done so much scuba diving
yeah.
around the world, and then I'm just
Oh,
like, I've kind of done all the best dive sites in the world, and now I'm just like, yeah, I'll go. And now I'm doing surfing, which is so hard. Surfing
yeah.
is like taking up surfing like last year. It's just the hardest sport, but I love it.
That's amazing, though. That's amazing. But there you go. You have a hobby, you explore it, you
Hmm.
have the feeling that you're completely immersed, right? Going into a flow state. Most of the time, when with new
I'm
things,
not
new.
sure I'm going into a flow state with surfing. I'm not good enough yet.
I'm seeing you washed away, getting washed away by these waves. Yeah,
Help!
yeah,
So one thing which I thought was interesting, I'm just thinking about your work compared to my work, and I've just seen a crossover, which I think is quite an interesting thing to discuss.
yeah.
So I know that, okay, I've developed a formula for disease. So it comes in a different way than you do things. So I'll explain what the formula is, and then I'm going to
Mm,
relate it to breath and the work that I'm doing, because I think there's a
mm,
real nice crossover, which I think I'd like to share with you. So
mm,
basically, I've discovered that diseases come in three categories: a gas, a liquid, and a solid. And
mm,
what happens is our thoughts are generating the gas. So
mm,
we get fixated on thinking about whatever it might be, some awful situation that happened to us in the past. And
mm,
that is actually in our energy field. So you know very well, I'm sure everyone, you and everyone listening, when you hang around with a depressed person, you can feel it in the air around them. An anxious person the same, or a happy person the same. You can walk into a room and cut the atmosphere with a knife. You can feel it in the air. Air becomes pregnant with emotion and energy. So
mm,
that's the gas side of it. And gas-based disease would be something like depression or anxiety, something like that.
Mm.
And then you've got a liquid-based disease. Now, a liquid-based disease would be something like a backache. Now, backache, it moves. Sometimes it moves to an inch to the left, an inch to the right, up, down, something like that. Or you can have something which is actually physically a liquid, like a cyst. It's a
Mm.
ball of fluid. But what happens is we get fixated on thinking about things, and the gas, the thoughts compress, and become into that liquid. And so that disease is just compressed thoughts, compressed traumas. And then the next stage would be something like a tumor, would be a solid. And if you press a tumor, it's very, very hard. But it's just compressed thoughts which cause these different diseases. So that's initially, and then
Yeah.
I've got to go into the lung bit.
Oh, beautifully. Beautiful. I like it very much. Yes.
Yeah. So what's really interesting, and what I was messaging you about initially was about the lungs. So in Chinese medicine, grief, sadness, and sorrow are the emotions which get stuck in the lungs. So what happens is, diseases go to different places, and it's about the quality of your thoughts, but specific emotions go to different organs as well in Chinese medicine. So I cross over quite a lot of different wisdoms in what I do. But
Mm.
what happens is, so people have, because they've got a lot of grief, sorrow, and sadness, and they don't release it, then what
Mm.
happens is it just gets stuck in their lungs. And
Mm.
so what I do with my methods is actually delete and dissolve the emotions of grief, sorrow, and sadness. And then people's lung capacity can increase, sometimes doubling or tripling in 3 minutes. It's really cool.
Mm.
But what you're doing, so I'm doing it from one direction, but what you're doing is doing it from the breath side, which is
Mm.
really interesting as well, because what you're doing is removing, so maybe it's liquid or it's a gas just stuck in people's lungs. And the way that you're doing it is by, you're almost hitting it by gas and smashing it down from that direction. And then that's releasing it into more gas and then into the liquids, into the bloodstream. But you're doing things with the blood because you're changing, oxygenating the blood with your breathing techniques. And so it's going into a liquid, or you're doing it coming out through breath. So you're actually using the solid liquid gas theory in a way with breath work, which I thought was quite an interesting way to
Yeah.
think of it.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, the way that I see it with this breathing, you touch upon everything because it's the whole nerve. So it's not just one thing or this or the gas or that. It's everything because it's the blood flow and it's going into the tissues.
Yeah,
The
it does all. It goes through the whole
the,
process in the body. Yeah, and
yes.
it's helping people with all of different diseases because it's
Yeah.
it's liquefying. I mean, the way to
Yeah.
solve diseases is to sort of liquefy them or to make them into gas. So if you've got something hard, then you just go through the process until it just comes out. And like the interesting stuff now is about body weight, which I found absolutely fascinating, which they said if people lose 10 pounds of fat, I think it was 8.4 of the pounds actually comes out as breath, which I
Ah,
think is, yeah,
well,
this is a study they
yeah,
did a few years ago. Fascinating.
well, the breath. It's also most toxins also go out through the breath, right?
Yeah, fat
So
and toxins. Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, the way that I see it, oxygenizing the body, if it is of course the nervous system, but it's also just oxygenizing the body.
Mm.
If the pH level is right, so you're just alkaline, then yeah, it means cleansing up the system. You're detoxifying all of everything. Actually, you're detoxifying and giving energy and oxygenizing your body,
Mm.
making it perfect breeding ground for releasing.
Yeah.
So there's releasing also of emotions, of toxins from the blood, tissues is more difficult to research, but that is how I see it. It's
But
also
it's
just
harder
release.
to get to because it's more solid. It's much harder to research and it's much harder to get to because you have to go through those different stages.
Yes, but the way that I see with the cleansing of the blood goes into the tissues, so it's
Yes, of
logical,
course.
So that's how I see it. I see it as a complete detoxification and cleansing up of the system, and in different ways, right? The releasing of emotions, it's also stuck in the tissues. If you think
Mhm.
about energy work, every energy center has different emotions attached to it. The
Yep.
heart, yeah, a lot of grief, etc. If we are breathing more deeply, and learning to recondition our breathing patterns, because that's also what we do, actually. We recondition by doing these breathing exercises. Actually, you're breathing in a very different way during your whole entire day.
Yeah, sure.
Most of the time, a lot of people, they are breathing in a little bit of a dysfunctional way. What does that mean? More high up in the chest. More from the chest, a little bit more stressful breathing, more shallow breathing. That also means that you are more stressed, actually, just by having this breath. So first you are more stressed, you breathe in a stressful way. Because you're stressed all the time, you continue to breathe in that stressful way, and all of a sudden the body picks it up and it breathes in this conditioned, stressful manner. So then we need to recondition it, and you do that by breathing more deeply, breathing more peacefully and slowly, and just by doing this more consciously already. That means you're reconditioning the whole way you breathe. Also means that the chest and the area, the lungs, they get more space. That's also where your heart is, of course. So you're opening up your whole body to take in that oxygen, to taking that air, and then it cleanses the system. So I love your explanation in this from the first. It's beautiful. I think it's really beautiful. It's very funny, because if you think about us all, what are we? Vibration. We're nothing more.
Yeah, sure. And we are solid.
And this is also vibrating. You don't see it, but it is also vibrating. A stone is also a living entity, vibrating, but we don't see it like this. So yes, I love your explanation. I don't know, by what it is backed, but I love it.
I'm trying to bring my explanation into the world, and this is part of the reason for writing the book, is to show people, what diseases are, because then what I do is I dissolve these things. And I mean, like, I had a cyst a few years ago, and I didn't realize I had a cyst. Then I had a scan, and I worked on the emotions which were causing me to have this cyst, and it was gone in 3 days. So if you can actually know what it's about and dissolve that, then the diseases sometimes fall away, or often fall away, which is pretty fun, and sometimes very, very quickly.
Yes, it really is true. It's the underlying conditions. Most of the time, the body takes it on. So when you have trauma, for example, it gets stored. It gets stored in the body. It gets stored in the brain as a neurological.
It's because we're building more and more, because we get fixated and stuck on certain ways of thinking because of something awful that happened to us. I mean, one of the beautiful benefits of cold water swimming as well is it does make you have no mind. Your brain quietens down, even if it's temporarily, but you're just not adding more substance, because your thoughts have matter to them. They are substance. So you're just not adding that for a time, and it's just a lot quieter and a lot safer. And then you can also not be in your stressed out nervous system. You end up in your parasympathetic, because you just don't have the mind chatter.
Yes, you're
Part
just
of it too.
completely. I think I see cold exposure. For me, it's a meditative practice, and it's very strange to call it that, but it really is true, because you go to a deeper part of your brain, the brainstem, and that's also where you have the here and now. You're much more present. And in that present, there's a stillness, calmness, and that creates a sense of peace. So all of this chatter, this thinking mind, we call it the monkey mind, it is being shut off immediately. And you really have to reconnect with the body, really go within. And there's a deeper connection. There's something happening when you are connecting with your body. That is a beautiful stillness. So there is this meditative practice to it. For me, I think it works as one of the best tools for meditation.
I do things, and it's really interesting, because we're coming at things from entirely different angles, but there's a beautiful crossover. I mean, what I do, I can still people's minds, which is quite fun as well, but I use it with energy, and I literally put a force field between them and their chatter, and then their minds are completely silent immediately. So that's quite a fun one too.
Yes.
Does the same.
Yes, it's energy. Energy is it's information. It's something that is invisible but that we are, and that is also glowing from the inside. When you are blocking, because you can have blockages, but when you are removing these blockages, you're just shining bright. That's how I see it. We're shining bright beings, full of energy. And when there are blockages, mental blockages, emotional blockages, physical blockages, that blocks your energy flow. So everything just needs to flow. But when that is flowing, that's how I see it, realigning, resetting. We're talking about the hormonal system, nervous system, but also just these energy. This is just also a reset of these energy centers, realigning them. The energy can flow freely, and then you just shine. So that's I think it's the same. Everything is connected to one another. In modern Western science or medicine, we always disconnect all these parts. That's why you have
we're
more
looking holistically, because we're looking at the whole thing, and it is ridiculous that we have it in what you have, someone for your heart, someone for your liver, someone for your lungs, it doesn't make any sense, because we're not compartmentalized like this. We have to look at the body as a whole, because things are affecting different things. It's it's all connected.
It is all connected, and if we look at from a more holistic perspective, then you can really go into these underlying reasons most of the time where these conditions rest on, and a lot of time it has to do with emotional issues.
I think it's 100% emotional. I'm putting that out there. I really do, because I've got a really good track record of fixing different illnesses very, very quickly, sometimes instantaneously. I do instant healing, and things just go away very quickly. You pinpoint the emotion, and then things just fall out of people immediately, which is really fun. But it is emotional based, most of it.
Yeah, it's a release of energy. So really going to the core of the issue, you can touch it. And if people are made aware of it, it's like shining a light in the dark room, right? You can see it. And that is the moment that you can decide, oh my God, I can release it. It has been seen. It wants to be seen. That is most of the time with trauma, it needs to be seen. It needs to be recognized. And the moment is just stuck. It's just pushed away. It hasn't been dealt with. That's neurology, but it's also just in the body. It gets stored as energy, and that energy needs to be released. And how does that happen? We need to go there. We need to go there. We need to go there. We need to be aware of it, and then it can release itself. And it is unbelievable how quick you can heal, or people can heal, once they instead of just popping pills. And
popping pills just suppresses symptoms. That's all it does. It doesn't actually even intend to make you well. Pills are not designed to make you well. They're designed to suppress symptoms, and then you end up with another symptom over here and another one over here, because your body's trying to tell you something, is explaining to you, hey honey, I'm blocked here, you've got these emotions, you've got this stuff you haven't dealt with, and we just don't really know how to translate it and understand what it is, and then process it and release it. That's the problem. One of the biggest problems with humanity. People don't have an awareness around this stuff.
I think so. And it's not, of course, all of these pills and for everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a much bigger reliability on pills, when actually it's not needed. We just need to have a good look at ourselves, or somebody that is guiding us the proper way, and first to see, okay, what is really happening here? What is really happening here? Instead of, I just want to numb this, and give me the solution, doctor. Give me the solution. We are also doctors. We have a healing capacity within ourselves, and we need to speak to that. We need to listen to ourselves. When we are not properly, this is really the thing, we're disconnected from ourselves, and sometimes we want to stay disconnected. That is the numbing of that voice. But actually, when we listen to that voice, reconnecting with that voice, that's when we become our own healers. We can become our own healers, but we do need to make that connection and really give ourselves that permission it's also permission. It's
And
also
taking
permission.
time for ourselves. People don't take time for themselves. People are so busy and distracted by a million different things. I mean, even doing the cold water exposure or breath work or something, it's taking time,
Yes.
to actually honor yourself and look after yourself. It's, it's noticing where things are out and working on yourself. And a lot of people just don't even take any time for themselves. They're just so busy looking after other people often.
Yeah, there's a nice little story about somebody that goes to a monk and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm so stressed out. What do I need to do? And the monk tells him, yeah, you meditate for half an hour per day. And then he says like, yeah, but I don't have time for that. And then the monk says, then meditate for an hour.
I know. I've heard this one before. It's true, though.
What it is just you have to take some time sometimes for yourself, to really make sure that you are listening to yourself, that at the end it's going to cost you your health else and a lot of time. So make sure that you take that time for
Well,
yourself.
they say, there's a reason that they say on aeroplanes to put your oxygen mask on
Yeah,
before other people, because
yeah,
if you
absolutely true.
don't, you cannot help
No,
anybody else, and you end
that's
up
true.
burning
But
out,
it's
and then you can end up being maybe erratic
yeah,
or moody or difficult or anxious or snappy. And if you just took time for yourself in the beginning, maybe you wouldn't
yeah.
get to that point where
And
you were super stressed.
that's it. And for a lot of women, this is difficult, huh? Man, okay, they can be, but a lot of women, they don't take their time for themselves, or they have them.
Exactly.
But even just honestly, we're talking about like minutes. Even minutes can make a huge difference in your day. If you just wake up and just take 1 minute, just 1 minute before you do anything else, and just to tune into your body, tune in with yourself. Just be still and try to see, okay, what do I need today? Just
Mm.
realize feeling and what is the intention that I want to place in today. That's already a great start. Now with these practices, the way that I see it, if you just do it, it's so easy. If you just even do one round of breathing, right, one round of Wim Hof method breathing in the morning, it already makes a difference. If you are already conscious, just conscious during your day, take a little moment, maybe 2 times a day, and just be conscious of your breath. Don't have to do anything else. Just be conscious. That's it. That's already going to make a huge difference in your life. If you
Yeah.
have your warm shower, how easy is it to turn it to cold for the last 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, then to 2 minutes? How easy is that? We're talking about minutes here. But the difference in how you're going to feel, yeah, how you're going to react, how you're going to be as a person is huge. So we're not talking about hours and hours and hours of work sometimes,
Yeah.
really some it's really the minimal effort you can already do, and then build it up because you feel so bloody good that you keep on continuing and want a little bit more of that, and you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
how what a big of an effect it has. So we're not talking about a lot of time here. It's just really taking that time to really put on the brakes and be still and just implement these practices just a little bit. If you
Amazing.
do 15 minutes of Wim Hof method breathing in the morning, plus you just end up your cold showers, yeah, if you do that already, it's going to make a huge improvement in your life. And
Could
I
you
can,
just go through the Wim Hof method for my
yes,
listeners, please?
yes.
Thank you.
So Wim Hof method, you have like 3 components. So the first one is the breathing. The breathing, we have different kinds of breathing techniques, but the basic protocol for the basic breathing technique, you just do it in the morning when you wake up in bed, or you do it on the couch, on a yoga mat, always in a safe environment. Never while in the water, not walking, also not when you're epileptic or you're pregnant. Don't do it then. But the rest, everybody can do it. Just make sure that you're lying down or
Okay.
sitting in a safe environment. But you do it 30 times, very deep breath. You can use the nose if you're a beginner, else it doesn't matter, nose, mouth. 30 breaths deeply in, really from the belly, chest, feel that you're going into the throat, the head, and then you let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Just 30 deep breaths, and then you have a last breath deeply in you let it go, and you hold it, and that is called retention time. That retention time you hold as long as you can. Just in complete silence, rest part. It's an amazing, amazing tool. You're going to feel amazing. And then only the moment that you really need to, then you take a deep breath in. And you hold it again for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then you let it go. And that is one round. You do 3 of these rounds. That is the breathing part. Part is the mindset, really tuning in with the mind. Can you really make that connection with the body? Mindset is a very important pillar. Why? Because you cannot only be like, oh, da, 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 I'm doing the breathing, da, 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 da. No, when you are doing the breathing, really connect and tune in with the body. Really make that connection. That's when you really get everything out of this practice. And then the cold, that's also with the mindset very important. Cold can be done in many different ways. With the workshop that we are teaching, we have Wim Hof method fundamental workshops, which are amazing. There's a lot of science behind it, and I recommend it. Everybody that loves to do this method, go to a workshop with one of the certified instructors. But you can also just do it at home. At home, what can you do? You have your warm shower, yeah. And as a beginner, you turn the warm shower to cold the last 15 seconds of your shower, and you build it up every day. You just add about 15 seconds more until you are to about 2 minutes. Yeah, that's about the protocol. But then you can play. But first do this little build up, and then you can play with these variations, because it's also about what you feel. Try to do everything by feeling, really with reconnection of your body and mind. But doing this, you can also do ice baths. I don't know, that's a little bit more extreme. I call it more of the extreme cold. But an ice bath is just amazing. We have that with the fundamental workshops, always as part of it. And we also learn people to go through different steps doing this ice bath in the proper way. Because you can do an ice bath just doing and then holding on and this and that, but that is not what we want. What we want is a different association with stress. An ice bath is a complete stressful environment. When you go in it, your whole nervous system says, get me the heck out of there. This is dangerous. This is painful. I don't want to do it. Everything in your mind is going to scream. What we learn during this workshop, for example, as well, is that we do it in the proper way, really calming the mind, really doing in a calmful, in a very relaxed manner. And by that, we are reconditioning our stress response. And that is the stress response you also have in your daily life. Those, all of the stress that you have in your daily life, that is what we are training with an ice bath. And it's amazing because you can learn to have a better relationship with stress, feel more in balance, feel more in tune while you're in a stressful situation. That is what we do with the ice bath. So I think it's very different than a cold water swimming. I think it's very different than a cold shower. For me, ice bath, the way I see it, it's the best.
Better than cold water swimming. I would have thought that being in nature and going in the cold sea would be the best, no?
No, it's the best stress management tool.
Okay, but better than cold water swimming, you think?
No, cold water swimming, it's different again, because there are different other elements are coming into play. It is nature. The temperature fluctuates. So during the whole year, it fluctuates. It's more of a mirroring with nature, the way that I see it. It's an energizing of your whole entire being. Can it be stressful? Yes, but it depends on in which season you are taking.
And which sea you're in.
If it's in the summer, it's going to be very different than the winter. And
it's still very cold in Cornwall in the summer in the sea. It's still pretty cold down this end.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not as cold as winter. Winter gets very cold. It's like 7 degrees.
Well, there you go. So it's cold, can still be very stressful, but it's a different experience. It's nature. There is nature, and nature already has a huge effect. There is a mirroring that goes on, of course, also in an ice bath, but there's a mirroring that goes on when you go into nature, because we are nature.
Yeah.
And so the temperature that is outside, yeah, if you directly deal with that, you're completely directly in contact with a whole beautiful big body of nature. You're feeling part of that. So that's where, and the meditative practice that comes with it, it's very different the way that I would use it and the way that I explain it than an ice bath or than a cold shower. Cold shower is something that is just very accessible. So Wim Hof method, very shortly, breathing, specific breathing techniques, mindset, very important mindset. And then we have different cold exposure. So we always say gradual cold exposure. And these three pillars together, they make up a very powerful method that really reconnect this mind and body and put you in an enormous, it gives you enormous power over yourself.
Amazing.
You have more influence over your nervous system, your hormonal system, over every type of system that you have. And there's so many benefits to this method. Simple practices. And it can create the right type of environment for you to be happy, strong, and healthy. And that's really what it is. And that's a physiological level, because we have athletes, huge athletes doing this. We have people with autoimmune diseases. They are doing this method. Why? Because it decreases inflammation and your immune system gets a huge boost. So it's great for people that have a constant, inflamed body. Well, this is the perfect method for it. It's there's no side effects. You feel really good. That's the side effects. And then people that are stress management, one of the best things to do it, rebalancing of yourself. But also people that are trying to find their purpose. I also see this as a spiritual practice, because you do go into those the parts of your brain where you are making, for example, DMT, and DMT is also the spirit molecule, the way they describe it. So you only make it when you are born and when you die. And we are making the same kind of hormones, opening up a portal. You have to feel. We always say feeling is understanding. When you do this method, when you do the breathing, it's unbelievable the effect that it can have, because it turns everything on, and you can have a deep religious experience, really, and that only in 50 minutes of breathing. It's unbelievable what it can do. And this is all endogenous. We always say get high on your own supply.
Well, I think, do you know what? I was years ago, I was thinking about John the Baptist, strangely, but who was baptizing people, and he was said to be the one who was actually giving people religious experiences when they were being baptized. And I sort of tuned into it, and I think that he was holding people underwater for a little bit longer than they were comfortable, and that was giving people the DMT from the NDE, the near-death experience. I think that's possibly what was happening, to have people having a religious experience was because of that was his baptism techniques. That's just my theory on it, but it makes sense.
That's interesting. Yeah, never do this breathing in water, by the way. That is never, ever, because you do go to subconscious parts of your brain, and those subconscious parts, that's like sleeping. And you don't want to do that while you're in the water, because then you can drown. So that's very important to know. But yes, you get a deep religious experience with these breathing techniques. So it's not only very cleansing and very healthy, put you very focused state.
It's almost psychedelic then, is it, in a way?
It can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be if you. And not only that, it gets into the trauma release. It's an incredibly effective way of getting into the trauma.
And free.
Yeah, that is great.
Free, and you can do it anytime you want.
Exactly. Yeah, but in a healthy way, because you're reconnecting. Huh? So you go to the trauma while you're feeling safe. And that's beautiful about it.
Yeah, it's very important to be doing that in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much, Laura. How can people get hold of you if they want to know more or book into one of your workshops or sessions with you and such?
Yeah, lovely. I actually had a website that was on, but now I put it off, so I'm re-establishing the workshop. But go to Laura Hof Alchemy, the Instagram. From there's going to be a link, and then you can go to different activities of mine and just follow me. and there's a lot to come. There's a lot of exciting news to come, but I can't tell you now. But just follow me and everything will be clear for then. I'm really looking forward to connecting with everybody. I'm always open for questions. So if you have a burning question, please do DM me. It's all good. And thank you so much for this lovely interview.
Thank you so much, Laura.